Hello. Can anyone hear me? Is the sound working? The Wii Shop channel theme died for reasons completely unknown to me, but I'm getting levels at my end, so hopefully you're getting them too. Cool. In that case, allow me to cordially introduce you to yet another episode of Jane Bloodborne's House of Eyeballs. Welcome everyone, welcome one, welcome all. How's everyone doing today? It's good to see you all in the chat. Oh, it's good to see Will in the chat realizing that they're not the number one bit donator anymore. It's not how it goes these days. Apparently, the number one spot in terms of bits donated is contested now. But yeah, we're here at Canhurst Castle. We've come along our merry way from Hemwick Charnel Lane, having been invited with... Do we still have the summons on here? Yes, we do. Having been invited, but we don't know who invited us. And yet here we are, having travelled across this now broken bridge in this now frozen cart by these now very frozen horses. So clearly things are even in the world of Bloodborne, things are weird. But we shall continue into the castle. It's very ostentatious portcullis raised for us already. Oh my gosh, thank you for donating bits, whoever just donated bits. The chat should tell me, but it hasn't, because Twitch is not very functional software. So, here we are in Canhurst Castle, and already we've got quite an extensive aesthetic departure from the rest of the world of Bloodborne. So, all of the other statues that we've seen so far really have been mostly religious in nature. Oh my gosh, thank you for donating bits, whoever just donated bits. I'm going to say it that exact way every time, just so you know. So yeah, this aesthetic is completely different. All the statues that we've seen so far have been sort of holy in a kind of, I don't know if traditionalist sense is the word I use, maybe like a very puritanical or Protestant sense, in that like everything in Yharnam at large it's a sort of foreboding religious figure, almost kind of leering at you and to scare you. Whereas these are much more Catholic royals, right? These are clearly holy images because they're of what are pretty unambiguously royalty, but they have a lot more shared ancestry with, for example, ancient Greek statue work than the kinds of things that we saw in Yharnam. Which is already quite interesting, because it shows the existence of an aesthetic flair that is completely absent from Yharnam. It gives it that texture that it didn't have before, which is cool. There's also, I guess, this space is a really interesting use of weather to communicate otherness, I guess, because throughout the other areas of Bloodborne, everything is pretty much like one biome, one climate, I guess. It's to give you the impression that it's all the same time, it's all the same day or night, as it were. Ouch. Okay. This is a really good start. That's so much damage. Wow. Oh no. That is not so much damage. Okay. Excellent. Well, I think that might form the basis of something of a pattern for this stream, because we're in Canhurst Castle, perhaps a little earlier than we should be. So we're here for the area boss, who has something that we want, but I won't go into it in too much detail now because it's actually quite an interesting narrative progression that I want to get to. She do hop, but also she attack. She wide. Yeah, I think in the interest of, I'm not going to try and fight these things too much, but I do want to try and finish exploring this area before we move on, because there's as ever with Bloodborne, the aesthetic is layered on thick and in layers, and I like that a lot. So, yeah, a much more Catholic depiction of royalty, much more ostentatiousness on the part of trying to look warm and welcoming in the way that these images often did, whereas the imagery of Yharnam obviously is not warm and welcoming. It's harsh. It's grotesque. It actively fears you. The people of Yharnam fear you. Certainly, they try and get you to leave, or indeed kill you. Whereas, oh no, right. Wow, stuck on the geode. Oh, there we go. Hey. So yeah, like, this not only shows just a basic level of imagery that is much more accommodating and welcoming to the player, it also shows religion in a completely different light in the world of Bloodborne, and I think that's super cool. And I think it's not only super cool, I think it's super cool that the warmth of the connotations of the imagery contrasts extensively with the climate of the area. Like, this place is sequestered from the rest of the world and completely frozen over, which is cool. I dig that contrast. It implies some kind of strange history here, which I like a lot. And yeah, what else was I going to say? I think that might have been what I was angling for. Oh yeah, so another thing I'm going to talk about at some length as we go through here and get the various items that we came here for, is that for a real long time there were a series of video games called Castlevania, and that centered pretty extensively around trying to kill Dracula by running through a big old castle, and they did this in a variety of cool ways. And exactly when this happened is a matter of some debate and varies from person to person, but people who like Castlevania seem to generally agree that at some point the games lost their way, and indeed most people would agree that there was never really a good 3D one. However, I will pretty ham-fistedly argue that Canhurst Castle is the best 3D Castlevania game. And actually, Canhurst Castle, it hints quite extensively at the shared DNA between Castlevania and the FromSoft action games. But I'll talk about that as we go. For now, I will continue to explore this area. Oh, more of those nasty leeches. I hate leeches. Ugh. My weapon is not long enough to attack that leech downrange. Hate. Why have I not antidotes equipped? I can't remember now. Oh yeah, there was poison somewhere. Oh, there was a running through the giant's grave. That was it. Hello. Hello. Excuse me. Oh no, that was terrible. We made it. I don't really know why we put so much effort into making it. There's not too much for us to lose here, considering we're not really planning to, I don't know. So yeah, I guess another immediately interesting thing about this area is the design of these enemies here. Because they, well, they're completely different from any of the various monstrosities that we've seen in Yharnam, right? Like, not only are they, well, I guess they've got that sort of wiry hair texture that we've seen so much of so far. But also, like, ow. I guess there's a lot of effort gone to obscuring their faces, and like, if you were, like me, really reaching for, but like birth imagery in this game, you could totally see like a sort of, you know, womb imagery thing going on with whatever kind of sack it's going on there. And it's got face tendrils. We love face tendrils. Don't want to reckon with that hitbox. Ugh, my weapon is too short to fight any of the enemies in this zone, so I'm not going to bother. But yeah, so lots of focus on contrast between a cold, frozen wasteland and warm, friendly, ostentatious religious imagery, and also, you know, grotesque, never-before-seen monstrosities. This is a nice touch. You run up to the door, you try and, you know, grab it to get those invincibility frames with all of these nasty monsters chasing you, and it opens for you. You can't do that. I think that's really fun. We're going to try and get these items. I think yeah, give it a go. Ow. So Dini614 is in the chat talking about how you don't really need to reach to find birth imagery in Miyazaki's games, and that's completely true. And in many ways, they come from Miyazaki's deep-seated and extremely manifest Berserk fandom, because if you've watched or read any Berserk and played Dark Souls, you will know that it's not even like, they don't even try and hide it. Like, Dark Souls is just a Berserk fan game, and it's amazing that it's become so successful because it's an unbelievably derivative work in what I would say is a good way. Well, bye Blood Echoes, I was never going to kill that thing anyway. And like all of that fascination with the often imagined monstrosity of femininity is right there in Berserk, just ported straight over to Miyazaki stuff. And I'm not saying that the guy doesn't have stuff to work through. He definitely does, but quite a lot of that is just grandfathered in straight from Berserk. So yeah, we're just gonna rush past these things because I just don't want to think about killing them ever again. Is there anything over here for us? Yes. More numbing mists. Whoop. Okay, so we are going to enter Castle Canhurst, having found the grounds to be entirely not to our liking. And what, prithee, is in here? Again, a lot more sort of, I guess, Catholicism imagery. There is a big, extremely ostentatious hall. Like, look at this. Like, I mean, this is, Gothic we're talking about. We're implicitly in this world where everything is purposefully over-designed and, what was the word I was looking for? Purposefully over-designed and just, I mean, I guess I'll just say ostentatious again. But this, even among that, stands out. And I think that's a really interesting choice. And the way that they do that is largely through useless space. Like, look at all of this. Where Yharnam was really tightly folded together, all of the houses are only as big as they have to be and no bigger. This is as big as maybe all of Central Yharnam put together. And that is really neat. That's a really neat way that they have chosen to signify the ideals and priorities of the people of Canhurst over those of Yharnam. And there's some whimpering people scrubbing the floor who we're going to leave alone for now. And naturally take the bait. Because that madman died knowing about the knife ghosts that are everywhere. Oh, you can knock over the candles, that's so cool. So yeah, the knife ghosts form the first part of the sort of enemy set of Canhurst Castle. And they're horrible. Because, well, they got knives, big knives, first up. They do a scream when they try and slash you. Oh, we don't do very much damage to them either. Great. Well, we stagger them pretty easily though. That's okay, I think we're okay to kill these. I think a good reasonable amount of echoes. I can remember my light fierce combo. Yeah, you see, these have an unusual thematic significance for us because the ghosts of Knife Ladies past. These are the ghosts of Knife Ladies past, and indeed they make us fear for the future. How long before one of these Knife Lady ghosts is Eileen's ghost, huh? How long? And if you think I'm not going to remind you about that every single stream, you're painfully wrong. So, another thing I really like about these enemies, one of several things I really like about the blind dressed Knife Ladies, is so I talked about how this game, this area, it sells the ideology of Canhurst through something as subtle as the size of the uselessness of this space, or the grandeur of this space, how vulgar a display of wealth it is. The enemy design fits into that absolutely perfectly, because from across the room, they're invisible. The space, there are like 4 enemies in this shot. You can kind of see 2 of them, but they still sell the space as empty, and that's really, really cool. Did we end up repairing our weapon? I think we did, but I'm just going to check. Yes, okay, cool. So the chat is mentioning that Ludwig's Holy Blade does 50% damage to everything here. That is completely true. Unfortunately, it's not very helpful for us because we don't have a hope in hell of holding that thing. However, since we're never going to actually get the sword itself, I think it probably makes sense for me to talk about why Ludwig's sword does more damage to these characters. So when we talk to was it Alfred? I'm not sure every time, and I learn every time, and still it never sticks in my head. But when we spoke to that cleric of the church, I'm going to say his name was Alfred, he spoke of vile bloods, people whose blood was for some reason undesirable and who were worthy of purging, for lack of a better phrase. And Ludwig's Holy Blade, a member of that church, does bonus damage to these because they are the vile bloods he sought to vanquish. But, the Writer's Palace. Is that? Hang on a minute. Whoop. Blood tinge requirement. We'll get there, I promise. What does it look like? Let's whack it on. But yeah, we've already talked extensively about the role of... Oh no, I can't even hold it. I don't have enough blood tinge. Some people. But yeah, so we've already talked extensively about the way in which this game uses blood and the relative quality or opinion of blood as a dog whistle for things like cultural or class differences. So with that in mind, it's worth thinking about what an entire culture of people or subculture of people whose blood is deemed vile by the church might imply for the greater power relations of the world. Okay, I think there's another chest over this side, but there are two knife ladies here. Oh no, there are three. These enemies also, they feed into something that whoever is running the concept art team at FromSoft does super well, and it's the idea of communicating oh no, this is bad, this is so bad. Well, this has gone terribly. Okay, it's the idea of, I'm not going to run over there, that's a trap. The idea of communicating fallen past, like, grace through just character design and animations. Like the way they glide across across the floor, the way they step, but also the way they carry their knives. It's very church-like. And none of that is by accident. Oh, that's why my damage is changing. I get it. It's because of that gem what I got. But yeah, like the Black Knights in the original Dark Souls, or any number of enemies from Dark Souls 3, like, this is something that whoever is doing that concept art really, really likes. And I love it too. So Deanie is in the chat saying that their read of the Vile Bloods is extremely classical vampire symbolism. Yeah, you may have spoiled the end of of this stream there, but don't worry, we'll get there. I'll talk about it at some point. But yeah, like this lady is just this ghost is just standing at a broken balcony weeping. And another thing about this enemy design is that because you can't see it very well, like, I guess you don't get a great look at any particular features of the model, but like this lady has clearly got a slashed neck. And they've got all of these sort of thralls with hidden faces that we can't see. Oh, and look at that. What's that coming through the faces of the mask? It's more hair, which is some imagery we've encountered before. See, look at this. They're just paralyzed, staring at the walls, or staring off over the balconies, just having a big old cry. Like, what are they crying about? One might wonder. Ow, rude. But yeah, I love this as like a sort of, I guess, a contrast to the space outside, which is very harsh and unforgiving. Whereas this space clearly like communicates at least the shell of like bygone hospitality, I guess. You know, more of this warm religious imagery. Like there was good here before, or you know, if not good, then at least the sort of the facade of good. Oh, look at this. And this is like the perfect step up from that. Like from look at all of this space we can afford to not use economically, to look at all of the fucking silverware we can jam into this space. It's a lot. Like, opulence. That's the word I was looking for. This is peak opulence, which is like the complete opposite of the mood that we've seen from Yharnam, and like its sequential motion from old Yharnam. It's just like, you know, where like in one way or another, like purity was desirable there, whereas here, well, here the people clearly have desires, and rather than hiding them until they become a culture-wide illness that manifests itself in gross hair growing from your arms, well, instead we have this. Really chewing through these blood vials. So yeah, like these two rooms, they pair up absolutely perfectly to just create this like this complete contrast to all of the areas of Yharnam that we've seen so far, from the, you know, comparatively developed, but still like relatively speaking to the, obviously, like the Gothic aesthetic of the game, the relatively speaking puritanical central and lower Yharnams, to the more provincial areas around the side, to the, you know, the ostentatious but oppressively so areas of the cathedral ward. Now we have this that is completely different. Gee, I thought there was someone coming around here. Oh well. So Regression is in the chat saying that it is an impressive trick to get me to be sympathetic to the upper class vampires. I'm not sympathetic to them. I'm just interested in the contrast that they display with the more explicitly the more explicitly oppressive xenophobia demonstrated by Yharnam. Don't worry, they won't get out of this easy. Look at all these. What do these look like to you? They sure don't look like, I mean, I guess they do look like people, but if you've ever seen pictures of, like, I don't know, if you've ever seen literally any vampire movie, this is sure as heck what they all look like. But yeah, peak opulence going on here. And like another image that we're getting here with all of these statues and the ways in which they're arranged, and the fact that many of them have like are holding babies, is that we're getting an idea of family in a way that we didn't with Yharnam. Like the contrast, at least the contrast that I get from this is that like Yharnam was a place where the people were your family. Like Yharnam was a place where your fellow torchbearer was your family. You know, the person who you went to burn the impure with was your family. Whereas in this environment, the idea of family and the resulting idea of hereditary hierarchy is very strongly reinforced by all of these statues. Like, look at this image. Could they be trying any harder to reinforce like hereditary patriarchy with this image? You have like woman holding child, literally like superimposed upon king. Could they be any less subtle? And another neat little thing is that you may have heard some weird noises as I was going over there. But like, what's that? That is a gargoyle style friend who we're gonna maybe try and avoid shanking until we can establish some kind of lantern. But you know, maybe we can't. Maybe we can't. We'll do our best. But I think another one... Yeah, there's one there. So... I'm gonna go up here. So yeah, like while images of family are like generally considered to be... like I guess a welcoming and warm idea. Ooh, hello. More gargoyles. Like a warm and welcoming idea. Like ultimately here, obviously, like if you do anything too much, it gets weird. You start to draw attention to like what you're really trying to imply by this. But also like it draws attention to this idea of heredity and the idea of, fittingly, the importance of your blood. That looked like an attack that nearly hit me. Let's just check. Yep, we're not fighting this thing. Excuse me. Oh Jesus, that nearly went really badly. So yeah, like, there's just so many statues everywhere. And what is a castle? What is a castle? What is a king's castle? What is the noble realm of a king without a knight? This is another just like it's a cool vestige of Yharnam's nobility, and it's like it is again an example of this thing that the FromSoft character designers really like to do, which is to just display. Ow! Ooh, what was that? That was some fucking Naruto shit. To display the idea of decayed nobility. I really like it because it looks really cool. Again, I think we're gonna try and avoid this character because I've nice frame rate drop there, but we're good. Yeah, I really like it. I really like this. Like, he's still patrolling after all these years. After everyone is a weird knife ghost. Hi, Megaspell. Welcome to the chat. That's some Naruto shit. I'll have to remember that for the VOD title. But yeah. So yeah, like, I guess it's kind of weird and slightly difficult to talk about the aesthetic development of this area when at this point they're really just look at all these fucking statues. They're just heaping it on you, and like this is really cool. Like we hinted at it earlier with the gargoyles, but it's really cool from like a combat encounter design perspective because it means that you can hide person-shaped objects in here really easily, and the player will just be like, well, it's just another weird statue thing. So yeah, expect me to get caught by that at some point. I think. Ooh, some crying. Oh, see, look, gargoyles right there. But because they're the right color and because they are person-shaped, just didn't fucking notice them. Perfect. I love it. We're not going to go that way. Not at least until we're safe. There must have been at least one Naruto ninja whose jutsu was just stabbing a lot, right? Ah. And look, what else is coded for, you know, medieval? Gothic wealth. But books. Just the most books. Back when, you know, printing was new-ish and, you know, like, learning to read was your main way of keeping poor people out of all of your institutions. Love it. So, register of vile bloods, but yeah, like, just, I mean, again, we have all of this. I mean, it's explicitly useless in this case, but like, just this massive, wide, open space, this like, web way of staircases leading to more and more and more knowledge. And, you know, as ooh, let's hit this. As like visual coding for, you know, the kind of development afforded to the wealthy over the less wealthy, like, it's pretty unambiguous. Right, cool. That helps us a lot, actually. I think I might dip back to the Hunter's Dream and see what these souls can buy us. Yeah, I remember Rockley doing a whole bunch of punch. His whole thing was he could, like, spend his life energy to punch better, but, like, I was thinking specifically of stabbing, like, to stab fast and good, because there were some ninjas who were big on the knives. I don't know. I remember close to nothing about Naruto. Do we start leveling up Blood Tinge yet, or is there anything else fun we can do? I think maybe I'll be boring and conservative and buy blood vials just in case. How many do we have? Yeah, so we don't have that many, so blood vials it is. Alright. Don't worry, we'll be leveling up plenty of Blood Tinge after this. Is it here? No? Here? Yes, Forsaken Castle Canhurst. So I guess Forsaken as well is like a purposeful choice of words, right? Like a place that has been forsaken has been left to go to ruins by some authority or power, right? Like maybe, I mean, especially in this case when we can see that the ghosts and indeed some of the former residents still just stick around. Like, they have been forsaken by someone. It's not these people that have forsaken their place to live. That's what you got to do. You got to fit lore detail. You've got to fit like thematic detail into every nook and cranny you can. So this room, using that thing I mentioned, where again there are like 7 enemies in this frame, you can't see them. Using that idea is that what was I going to say? This is a really interesting combat encounter actually, because not only does it have all of the knife ladies that you're going to be tempted to run past, but also I believe at about this point in the stage, they begin to develop some new techniques. So yeah, I guess I hope I've made it clear at this point that like the key features of the Vile Bloods are that they manage to be extremely wealthy and extremely showy about that wealth, very Catholic about that wealth, but also they have been left to rot. They have been kicked out, and like this is not uncommon imagery for like, I guess, sort of oh god. So yeah, that's the new shit. It's frightening and just from you dart blower, blow darts at me. Oh, this has gone so badly. Oh no. But yeah, like this is not untapped territory for Gothic imagery in a work like this, right? Like there is very clear cultural history to draw upon of more ostentatious displays of faith and like correlations of faith with wealth and things like wealth. Like that has been at times in history ousted in favor of more puritanical, more I guess holier than thou depictions of faith. Can't even kill the fucking stewards. God damn. Right, there is some shit in here that we're looking for. Oh, it's another knight. I'm just not going to fight the knight. Why is there a knight in the library? Oh no! Oh, it's all gone wrong. Okay, that's not what we're looking for. But there is something. Ooh, hello. There is something in here that we want. That ladder among them. Ooh, here we go. This is something. A bloodstone chunk. We'll need those. Now, there are a couple of chests in here. One of them grants us the... Oh, this has gone so badly. Ooh, there's 3 knights. Okay, that's more than I thought. So, one of them grants us a set of armor, I believe. And is somewhere near here. I don't know exactly where. Well, we'll find it. We'll find it. But yeah, so as we come through this area, like a view of the Canon's Firebloods will develop. So initially, because of the church's description of them, indeed, like at least I certainly was the first time playing through, I was suspicious of and ready to be sympathetic to the Canon's Firebloods, just because of the assumption that it was a kind of discrimination based on blood. However, what we find is that because of a variety of things to do with their aesthetic, to do with their place in this power structure, like basically how I see the Canon's Firebloods is as a kind of this is Gothic horror, right? Like this is about expressions of fear that people will find relatable, people will find parallels within their own lives, but maybe feel frightened or worried to express, right? And oh no, I've forgotten about this. Oh god, please don't take your head off. Oh jeez. And so like we talked at some length about how the kind of fear and the kind of horror that the Yarnamites work with and prey upon is the idea of repression, is the idea that you can have desires, you can have beliefs that are so strong but so vicious that they eventually will consume and transform you. Whereas this is one of the chests we're looking for, excellent. Whereas this, as Dean was saying earlier in the chat, reads as much more classic vampire imagery, right? There's this focus on opulence, it's in a big castle, it's kind of like Castlevania, and there's all this focus on heredity and hierarchy, the kinds of things that vampirism and vampire fiction is, like, often, like, those are the vices at the center of those stories. And for me, I guess the role of the position of the Canon's Firebloods in this world is like it's like a ruling on it's basically one kind of sort of, I guess, class suppression pushing another out because they can't coexist. Like Uh, can I leave here, or have I bonked this? Okay. Was I meant to pull a lever that I haven't? Ow. Wow, extremely rude. My precious eardrums. Oh hey, you made it outside. That's cool. I didn't know you could do that. Oh yeah, I think I see the exit now. That's cool. Enemies, like basic enemies with stagger frames is cool. As like you get later on in games, like enemies get as enemies get larger health pools for you to deal with. I'm into like devolving like boss mechanics such that your your basic enemy encounters by the end of the game resemble early game boss encounters. I dig that. I think that's smart and cool. So yeah, we're gonna wander around. So yeah, this is all very Symphony of the Night actually. It's like, oh, we're gonna actually get changed because we're looking a little bloody. So where is oh, is it just this stuff? Sure. So yeah, rest in peace, Jane Bloodborne, wearing the cleric, the dead cleric's armor. Rise, Jane Bloodborne. Oh, look at that. I mean, you're looking a little bloody still, but that fashion. Say what you will about the obscenely rich, and I will, but that fashion. Oh, it's good. I love it. What's this about the little ponytail? I don't see a little ponytail. Or is that? No? Okay. So, yeah. Oh, there's an item over there that I think I want to get before because I can't get back up there. So where was I with regards? Right. So, yeah. So the idea is that the idea of werewolves and the imagery of werewolves that is being drawn on with, rude. The imagery that's being drawn on with werewolves is like this idea that your uglier emotions will eventually get the better of you and warp your flesh, whereas the sort of things that vampirism is drawing on are the ideas that there are some people, possibly you, whose desires are so decadent, whose will is so strong that they can subvert the will of others and place themselves at the top of what at the time would have been a very rigid social hierarchy, and will probably choose to reinforce it themselves once they get there. And like there is an ugliness inherent, a potential ugliness inherent to that. There is there is a potential ugliness inherent to that. There is like a reticence to confront the real world or the light. There are oh Jesus, I nearly went so badly. I need to do something about this hat. This hat is not working for this outfit. That'll do for now. So, someone in the chat is saying that a functional description of vampires is that they are liberals as demonized by conservatives, and I guess I can kind of see that. I guess the thing is that with the right sort of, I guess, ideological framework, you can demonize almost any ideological opponent as sort of overly decadent and uh, evil and disaffected as like a result of that. Like, you know, it would be easy, for example, to cast a vampire as you know, conservative ideologically, because they are ultimately reinforcing a, you know, a social hierarchy using essentialist power that, you know, by virtue of there being a vampire they have. But similarly, you could say that you know, if you were a particularly deluded conservative, you could say that liberalism was like, you know, or the left, I guess, was more vampiric through the, you know, the various imagined decadences that conservatives say that those people have, like, you know, being treated as a human being. Is there anything over this side? Ah, you. You're not getting away. So yeah, another really interesting thing about the contrast between werewolves and vampires that's being alluded to in the chat is the difference in sexual aesthetics. So, as we've already sort of talked about, is this game has some hang-ups about like femininity and birth and things like that, and like it's am I here already? Okay. Yeah, it has some hang-ups about femininity and birth and some... Wow, Jesus. This Vista is really nice. I like it a lot. So, like... There's a pretty compelling argument that both vampirism and werewolfism are, like, you know, very sexualized horrors, because this idea of... there it is. This idea of a sort of a primal rage that you know, consumes your body and compels you to commit violent acts is like, oh, look at that, I look so good. You know, that's a very like, that's sort of ripe for often violent sexual imagery, I guess. Whereas vampirism doesn't really like appeal to the idea of being... How am I going to say this? I guess it's like... No, never mind. This is going to need some more time in the oven before I talk about like the sexual imagery on display of vampirism. I'll think about it while I'm doing autopilot tasks, like repeatedly dying to the area boss. Just take a moment to appreciate this. I mean, I'm still looking a little bloody, but this tiny hat, I love it. Can I like wipe my face with this? Does that work? No, that's only refreshed when you... Fair enough. Alright, we'll go down here. So yeah, this idea of, on the terms of the power relations between the Vilebloods and the Church, is this idea of performing, like the Church performs Puritanism and like purity as a sort of, I guess, praxis, which clearly the Vilebloods do not. Like, they are in pretty direct opposition to that idea. They very ostentatious, very opulent, like the complete opposite. And like the Church forcing them out, like, it shows a disapproval of those ideals, that sort of thought process, and that method for managing your community. But as we will go on to find out, the church has sort of performed Puritanism that, you know, in many real life cases leads to the kinds of community xenophobia that we've seen in this game so far. As in many of those real life cases, the Church may not exactly practice what they preach. But that is something that we will find out about. Now I'm sort of farting around in this area because I know what's over there, and we didn't get the monocular, so I can't take a better look at it. But that's a pretty throne looking thing on this this castle. So I'm gonna wander back so I can bank these blood echoes for some more blood vials and establish the running route to this boss, because I anticipate that we will have to fight it more than once. Okay, so it's not down here. We've got to fall off another roof to get out. Or I could just use the Bold Hunter's Mark, but I do want to see if... So Will is in the chat talking about how if we manage to keep the conversation on vampires and werewolves and sexuality, you could all get me to talk about Twilight. It would be extremely easy to get me to talk about Twilight. I find that story extremely interesting. Not necessarily from a consumptive perspective, but from a perspective of, wow, it's wild to me that that is so popular. Not only that it's so popular, but that it is so popular with the particular people with whom it is popular. That is interesting to me. That's deeply interesting to me. Like, I don't know. I mean, if you know me personally, or you've talked to me a lot online, you know this about me. But like, I find pretty much any broadly appealing mass media really interesting, to the point where, like, the sort of the example for me of this is between like 2010 and 2016, I would regularly give the anecdote that Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen ruined my life, and I don't not believe that now. Like, that movie had watching that movie had a very significant effect on my life. Like, it changed how I think about movies, it changed how I think about the commercialization of movies, it changed how I think about like sort of childhood intellectual, like, you know, intellectual property that was important to you as a child. It changed all of those kinds of things. Now, the reason that this is an example of how I feel about mass media is that since 2016, I've seen every other Transformers movie. That is how much I like this kind of thing. Like, I really like to... Oh, she's having a snooze. I really like to delve into stuff that isn't immensely popular like that, and like figure out, or just think about why, because it's really interesting. It's really cool. I dig it. So I haven't read all of the Twilight books. So Will is in the chat talking about having read the Twilight books all in 1 week, and I have not read all of the Twilight books. I've read the first one, and Will is saying the books are very compelling, and I kind of would agree with that. Like, it was immensely readable, but I did not have much of a desire to read the one after the first one. So, like, I've seen the movies. Is my interaction with Twilight as a media property. At the time, I told myself it was so I could see Lee Pace do vampire things, and you know, it still is, really. But like there are some really famous people in those movies. Like Bryce Dallas Howard as like a weird ancient vampire. Like, are those movies real? Can someone confirm to me that the Twilight movies are real? Okay, so we have our shortcut, and I think now that we've opened up that bookcase in the library, that is good enough. So yeah, I guess at this point we're going to fight the area boss at least once, and there's going to be some kind of quote-unquote reveal after we beat it. So I'm just going to summarize the thematic stuff we've touched on so far this stream. And it's mainly the idea that I think about a lot is the game presenting an incompatibility with two competing but still ultimately oppressive ideals for how to deal with how to deal with, like, you know, class ultimately in the world of Bloodborne. Like, we've seen in Yharnam how the Church's Puritanism ultimately cultivates a community of xenophobia amongst the Yharnamites, but like, the fact that they have chosen to forsake the Kanhurst Firebloods, like, it does reflect on them in some way, but I guess it's not necessarily like a particular. It doesn't, it doesn't cast any one of them as the greater or lesser evil, I guess, or at least not yet. I mean, ultimately, I don't think so, but there's yet more information to consider, I think. So, there are some really, really cool, like, vistas in this game. Like, look at the way the moon hits that as you walk towards it, and the sort of the railings just, like, form that image. It looks so good. This game looks so good. Like, I look so good in it. Oh, look, my face is clean now. None of that vile blood on me. Covered in ghost blood. That's super weird. Okay. This is gonna be a complete fuckfest. So this is the king of Kanhurst Castle. Crown still on his head. Notice the crown still glittering, but his body, wretched and withered, frozen into its seat. That's cool as hell. With his weird scythe. And as the bell tolls, does it toll for us? Or does it toll for Martyr Ligarius? Now, you may remember Ligarius' name from elsewhere in this playthrough. I fully expect those arcane attacks to kill us in one hit, so we'll just have to not get hit by those. Can't wait to spend dozens of hours learning how to attack this boss. Oh, that's gone wrong already. That's actually not the worst thing in the world. It's not the best thing in the world, but it's not the worst either. For a boss that, if I'm not mistaken, does not heal much. Oh, rats. Bother. Come on, there we go. So yeah, counterintuitively, but also not uncommonly for Dark Souls bosses, it is a good idea to stand really close to the dude with the huge scythe. Fuck. Okay. Well, that didn't go too badly, actually. That was only like 2 visceral attacks. So that's probably like, what? 8, 10 to kill, which is actually a lot better than I thought. It'll be difficult, but not impossible. Oh, there's like a mid-stage transformation on this boss that I have no idea if I'm going to be able to deal with. Let's find out, I guess. So I guess I'll ask the stream chat because, you know, democracy rules, and Twitch loves democracy. So there is a very real possibility that I am not going to have run this boss enough times in the next hour or so to have defeated him. So what do you want me to do? Do you want me to like keep running at the boss and then give you like insights about the themes as and when they come to me, or I don't know, I could play something else after this gets boring, if indeed it does get boring. I don't know. How much do you all like watching me run bosses? Bother. That's really annoying. Okay, so you actually need to get that super early, huh? Huff. As punishment for killing Eileen, you should have to keep throwing yourself at the boss. Yeah, I'm willing to accept that punishment. I mean, it was, you know, I killed Eileen to make this even remotely possible for myself, so I will accept that penance for my sins. So the thing about, so someone again is in the chat asking about using the gun to get viscerals on this boss, and basically I talked to someone about it, and they said that compared to the Blade of Mercy's backstab window, the gun's visceral windows are much higher risk, which, you know, for a stream that has just watched me get completely owned trying to get the backstab window right, might seem weird, but I'm willing to believe. I'm happy to put some time into trying to figure out gun visceral windows for Ligarius, but it's not an immediate part of my proactive plan in the way that backstab viscerals are. So for anyone wondering why I'm not just, you know, peppering the martyr with the gunshots, that's why. Okay, so realistically speaking, we want to be just right in this guy's ass, right? Just constantly at or stabbing Ligarius's booty. Stab the booty like it's, I don't know, a pinboard. Starting a new power violence band called Gun Visceral. Is power violence a real genre name? Really? I mean, cool, but really? Okay, so I'm not going to try for this one, but I am going to try for the next one. Oh, heck, that's not what that attack was. Okay, backdash seems to work. Might try that. Oh, whoops. That was a bad dash. Jeez. Okay, everything does like 75% health. That's nice. Oh, cool. The further away you are, the best that attack is. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. We're learning. No time spent learning is wasted. I think it's impossible to have a PhD and not believe this. Well, sorry, it's impossible to try and study for a PhD and not believe this. Him sword. I'd forgot him sword. I hadn't forgotten him sword, but like, I didn't know he did it in this phase. I have big love for this guy's all skulls all the time Warhammer aesthetic. Oh, his back's against a wall. That's so bad for me. Oh jeez. Oh jeez. This is going atrociously. Can you get away from this wall, please? Oh, jeez. Call yourself a king, you loser. I'm going to stand here. Oh, that was not the attack I thought it was. Okay. Okay, that needs to be getting an attack wind up. There's no way I'm going to catch that. It's just going to backdash. Come on. Come on. Come on. Is there like a specific range I can stand at to get him to... No. Ooh, there we go. And then we get invincibility frames for the attack. You see? That's cool. So I want to stand at like medium range, I guess. Ooh, that was again not the attack I thought it was. Oh jeez. Because yeah, like... So yeah, at medium range, it whiffs his skull volley. But also... Oh, balls. I'm learning. This is going actually not terribly. So at medium range whiffs his skull volley, but he still triggers his big arcane ball. Which is the one we want to punish. Oh, okay. That's fine. Double backdash. Is this phase 2? This looks like phase 2. Yeah, that's phase... Well, this is just an arcane attack. Big old arcane attack. Arse. That's rude. Okay, right. I was not remotely prepared to deal with that. Interesting. Oh my gosh, thank you for following, I think. Or, I actually can't remember which sounds the announcements are now, but whoever just interacted with my channel, thank you very much. I love it when people do that. Oh, arse. I wish you'd do that less. No squeamy please. God, that's so annoying because it's such a tiny amount of damage, but I invariably have to heal it by the time I get there. That's very annoying. At least my extra blood vial slot lets me start with 20. Ooh yeah. Love the videos game. So the other thing I noticed during that last run is that at least like our charged back attack, it doesn't actually do awful damage. Like, I know I'm trying to sort of quasi-cheese this boss, but we're not doing terribly. Ah, Jesus. Okay, we can't run that. We'll run the next one. Oh, gosh, dang darn. Oh, that definitely hit. What the hell? Missed that. So there's subtly different animations when he winds up the two different attacks. Ooh baby, that was close. Oh, shit. Oh, okay, that was just greedy and bad. Looks like he's coming in for a scythe. No? Okay. Oh, back dash, back dash. Oh, that was bad. That was so bad. But yeah, sort of early fighting it aside, I actually kind of really like the design of this boss. Like it has a lot of clear and present area denial effects. I'm just running straight into that every time. So I can't tell if those animations are the same. It does not feel like they're the same, but also I cannot readily tell the difference. Is it like to do with the speed at which he whips the scythe around? Ow, just done that 3 times now. 4 times. Okay, I'm standing at a bad range, clearly. Yeah, it feels like he's slower. Maybe I'm imagining that. Yeah, he traces out like a moon shape. Well, you know, that's how I'm reading it. In this, the moon game, the game that is about the moon. Okay, phase 2. Next time we'll try to get to phase 2 with above 10, above 10 blood vials. Oh, how did that hit me? God damn. Can I like hide behind the pillars? Oh, I could definitely have visceraled that. Let's just take some instant kill endurance. Oh, not this. Oh no, the swords. There's so many swords. Oh, heck. Oh, God damn. Oh, this has gone wrong. Okay. Well, shit. That went atrociously. Oh, you have to destroy the sword, don't you? There's like he leaves a sword in the ground. Okay, sure. Okay. And we're down to 6 blood vials. Great. Oh, that's really, really bad. Because the regular loop of just like rushing the boss is limited somewhat when you have to grind up blood vials from all the screaming ghosts every time. So what I will probably do is kill this lot of ghosts one more time, get another set of blood vials one more time, and run the boss one more time. So, I guess to go back to the topics of like the differences in imagery between vampirism and werewolves, and the differences in the relationship to religion and the church, is that like I guess this is a sort of a similar. Oh no, that was such a mistake. This is a similar kind of idea to what we were talking about with the Forbidden Woods and the residents of the Forbidden Woods. Is this idea that so things like xenophobia and other manifestations of interclass struggle, they can come about in lots of different ways, not just the obvious ones. So, whereas these guys, I guess they're like a control group, right? These folks have, rather than what the Yharnamites have done, which is bake these class struggles into their power structures and their culture, so that nobody questions them. They're just normal. Here, it's the opposite. Nobody questions it because it's right there on display. Like, there are rich people, and there are poor people who scream, who sit on the floor and cling. Like, there are the class structure here is as rigid, if not more rigid, than what we've seen in Yharnam, but they make no pretense about it. This is how things are. This is how things should be. And like, vampire fiction consistently presents that as an ideology. Like, vampires commonly have, even in what we do in the shadows, vampires constantly have are constantly depicted with vassals, or even like entire courts of lesser vampires who are content with their place in the social hierarchy because they are better than, they're still vampires. They're better than the serfs whose blood they drink. They're better than, the staff who they'll sort of casually kill because life means nothing to them. Whereas like in Yharnam, you might be tempted, after seeing this, you might be tempted to think that the reason that Yharnam, specifically the avatar of Yharnam's faith that we've met in terms of Alfred, you might be tempted to think that their attitude to religion, the church's attitude to religion, is maybe more, I guess, forgiving to, or like more sympathetic to the plight of the lesser than this, right? Which is manifestly, like this system is manifestly hostile to the lesser on the. This system is manifestly hostile to the lesser under the pretense of like the idea that royalty will protect you because of the idea of kingdom and queendom, and the idea that a kingdom is only as good as its as it protects its lessers. Whereas Yharnam's faith makes a show of caring for the community and caring for the downtrodden, but as we've seen, it is it's trampled into the sewers. Like, these people are left behind, but they're hidden from view. Whereas here, like, the people who are cleaning the floors of the most opulent building in the game, or that we've seen in the game, are like, they're dressed in rags. Like, they're clearly having a shit time, and they're praying to the ghosts of these like oligarchs, which is some indenture right there. And that's really interesting. And this idea of not hiding the things, like these things about yourself, or however like ugly it's possible to read them, like that is a linchpin of classical vampire fiction. Because so I was talking earlier about how the horror inherent in talking about like the idea of werewolves is this idea that your desires are so strong that you can't control them. They will shift and change your body, and you will do things and then wake up with no memory of having done them. Vampirism, on the other hand, and this again feeds into the conversation that I almost started having with regards to the sexual imagery inherent in vampirism and werewolves, is that vampirism is this idea that, so you have these desires, you want to be more than you are, and vampirism, like werewolfism, gives you the power to do it. But the difference is that vampirism makes a show of, like, vampirism is still under the surface ugly, but crucially it's under the surface. Vampirism entertains the idea that like a horrifying prospect is the fact that some people will take this deal with the devil, will become this sort of super powerful entity that gets to fuck all the time and be king or whatever, because it allows them to present this veneer of perfection. It allows them to be an idealized being, but like they live a half life. But that doesn't matter, because the half that they're able to present is idealized. Whereas the werewolf is a very, like, though it's lionized and sort of valorous and strong, the werewolf is ultimately ashamed of the things that they want, such that the things that they want explode from their bodies without warning, without them wanting them to. And that, I guess, is the difference. That the sexuality of the vampire is wielded confidently, whereas the sexuality of the werewolf is unchained and unruly. Note that one is not necessarily more violent than the other, but the violence does come across in different ways. Like, vampires often are depicted to have this ability to subvert the wills of others through, mind magic, or even just like pure dark attraction, which is basically mind magic, but thematically distinct from. And that feeds into the aesthetic dichotomy between Yharnam and Canhurst. Whereas both systems like exhibit a feigned concern for their people, but ultimately trample them down. How they present that concern and how much they commit to appearing concerned versus appearing humble in and of themselves, which is what the church does. That is the difference. So, one more set of blood vials, one more run of the boss. Note that we're at the weird latticed gravestone, which means things are getting weirder. And I'd say things are pretty weird at the Forsaken Castle Canhurst. Oh yeah, I never really talked about Castlevania, did I? Well, basically, the castle Canhurst is a very explorable space. It's a space that you can gain, dominion of, like a lot of spaces in Soulsborne games. It's a space that you can move through. It's a space that rewards, and you have to walk around on ramparts, like secret passages around the castle that no one who ever lived in the castle would have used, but we get to use because we're a video game's protagonist. And what was I going to say? Sorry, I'm checking the chat. What was I going to say? Yes. So yeah, and this game, I guess, like many Soulsborne games, exhibits the same things that the original Castlevania did, which really worked for me, which is, and I've talked about it before, this intense concern with how the average player will approach a scenario. And you could just call that level design, which many people do, but the way that these games go about it for me still manages to stand out. Wow, stop with the blow darts, I hate them. And this all feels very Castlevania to me. You have to take a very specific, unintuitive, snaky path through those ghosts, because otherwise they'll just shank you up good. And of course, the other thing that makes this very Castlevania is the aesthetic. Look at me. I'm basically I look like Alucard. I look cool as heck. Oh, I should have healed later. Rats. Actually, one more run at the boss brings us almost to what would normally be time for this stream. So I think actually we've done okay. The fact that this area was, fairly difficult, and also I was just waffling endlessly about myself and Castlevania, and also I guess Bloodborne, has got us to a pretty good time. Next week is going to be the interesting thing, because 2 hours more of boss running is going to get old pretty fast. Maybe I will get some more health off camera or something. Ooh, hello. Oh. No! God damn it. Still having difficulty picking out the difference between those two animations. It's definitely it's in the very, very start of the startup frames is the difference. There. No, not there. But that's where the difference is, but I'm having difficulty working out exactly what it is. Very tight backstab window. Oh, that was a mistake. Haven't been punished yet. Yeah, I mean, away from that wall, goddammit. Come on. Oh, stop backdashing. So unhelpful. I hate this. No. Get away from the wall. Please. Oh, there we go. That's something. No. Oh. Oh god, that was bad. Okay, well I only spent like 4 blood vials, so I think we can go again. But that's definitely going to be it. Thank you everyone for sticking with this, at times, slightly stodgy stream. Maybe I should try just, like, attacking that. I'm still gonna have to heal when I take that full damage later anyway. Ugh. Buh. I promise this will eventually be worth it for the cool weapon that we get. I promise. Gosh darn. Oh, okay. That's maybe one too many times getting hit by that to consider continuing, I think. Yeah. Okay, so I mean, we've still got blood vials, but I'd rather just have a lot more than we do now than before continuing running this boss. I'm going to stop. So, yeah, so thank you everyone for watching the stream. Thank you for bearing with me during the slightly rougher parts of this area run. I promise it will get easier after this. We'll be able to just glide through the game with our cool stabby weapon. But yeah, so this has been another episode of Jane Bloodborne's House of Eyeballs. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you everyone who variously donated bits, who followed the channel, and who, I don't think anyone subscribed. I think the chat would have told me if someone subscribed. But if you did, thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who subscribed previously. I love you all. You're the best. We got some stuff. We got a gun we can't use, or a sword. It's just a sword and a gun that we can't use. We got this fun coat, and we got this fun hat. So it wasn't a complete wash. Between now and next week, I'm probably going to do some research. I'm going to just rush up, have a look at the Martyr before taking him on next week. And I think I'm going to try and get myself to a point where I can consistently get the Martyr down to low health, and then maybe stream fighting them. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe I'll nail him off camera. Anyway, yeah, so that's me done for the evening. But as I said before, thank you everyone for coming, and I hope you join us next week for another episode of Jane Bloodborne's House of Eyeballs, and on Monday for Let Us Cling Together, when we'll be playing a tactics game. I think we're finishing our Invisible Ink run, so there'll be a new game on, so it's all happening. But once again, thank you everyone, and goodbye.